Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. My name's Kylie Walker. I'm the CEO of the Australian Academy of Technological Sciences and Engineering. I'm delighted to be joined by all of you today and by my co-hosts, Anna Maria Arabia, who's the CEO of the Australian Academy of Science, and Richard Samuels, who's the General Manager of International Science and Resources at the Department of Industry, Science and Resources. And we are thrilled to see the level of interest that's been generated by this first round of the Global Science and Technology Diplomacy Fund strategic element. Before we kick off today, I do want to acknowledge country, and my staff and I had the privilege last week of learning how to acknowledge country in language, so I'm going to give it a shot. Dara Nyunga, Dara Nyunawal, Yangu Nalamanyan Dunimanyan, Nunawalwari, Dawalwari, Dindi, Wangira Lijinin. And that translates to, this is Ngunnawal country. Today, we are meeting together on Ngunnawal country. We acknowledge and pay our respects to the elders. And I acknowledge also the traditional lands that you've been meeting us from today, from around Australia. So ATSE is very proud to be the lead delivery partner for the Global Science and Technology Diplomacy Fund strategic element. And of course, we're working in collaboration with the Australian Academy of Science to deliver this fund. And it is fully supported by the Department of Industry, Science and Resources. The first round for this fund is a $6 million round. It's an opportunity to support Australian research, development and commercialisation activities to thrive in key priority areas, and to do so in collaboration with partners across a range of strategically important nations. Our Academy is a fellowship of 900 leaders in applied science, technology and engineering across a whole range of different sectors. And we work to support Australia to understand and apply science and technology to solve complex problems. Our Academy and our fellows know firsthand the significant benefits that can be brought through strategic collaborations. Australia's key challenges are also global challenges: tackling climate change and transitioning to clean energy, resilience to emerging diseases, the evolution of modern manufacturing, the advanced digital technologies. They're all opportunities as well as challenges. And we know that meaningful collaboration with our international partners will open new opportunities, build new knowledge, provide strategic pathways to ensure that our innovations are applied in the real world. So the fund offers grants of between $100,000 and $1 million across key priority themes for projects that are delivered in collaboration with partners in priority nations, and we'll cover those in more detail in a moment. The Global Science and Technology Diplomacy Fund represents an excellent opportunity, we believe, to support Australian science and technology to thrive and to work together with our global nations and other collaborators to mutually build capacity and ensure a strong and thriving future. It's deliberately framed to strengthen our diplomatic ties, to fuel long-term economic growth and to nurture our spend. Okay, I'm just going to do a little bit of housekeeping before we jump into it. So today we're going to do our very best to answer your questions and cover the key information that you are that you need to be able to submit a high quality application. We will be recording this session and it will be available online afterwards via the Global Diplomacy Fund website. My co-host and I will endeavour to provide an overview of the fund and its objectives, discuss eligibility and the application process and the role of international partners. We'll endeavour to leave as much time as possible for your questions, but please submit them throughout the presentations and use the chat function or the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen to do that. We've got quite a few people joining us today, so we may not get to all of your questions. We're likely to try and group them into themes so that we're able to cover as much ground as possible. But if you would like to leave your contact details along with your question, I encourage you to do that, and the team will get in touch with you afterwards if we've been unable to address your question directly during the session today. So I'm going to hand over now to my colleague, Anna Maria Arabia, who's the CEO of the Australian Academy of Science.
Thank you ever so much, Kylie. And I too join you from Ngunnawal and Ngambri land and acknowledge the traditional owners here. Kylie, thank you for that very warm introduction and for presenting the Global Science and Technology Diplomacy Fund. We are delighted at the Academy of Science to be working with the Academy of Technological Sciences and Engineering and, of course, with the Australian Government to deliver the strategic element of this fund. Many of you would know that the Australian Academy of Science is an independent organisation of distinguished scientists championing science for the benefit of all. This fund is designed to identify and support strategic international science and research collaborations and will play a pivotal role in advancing the science and technology landscape in our region and globally. I'd like to spend just a couple of minutes to give you an overview of the purpose of this session, and that is really to provide you with details of the program, including an overview of the strategic element of the Global Science and Technology Diplomacy Fund and how it fits into the broader Global Science and Technology Diplomacy Fund, to overview the eligibility and application process, the priority partner countries, and as Kylie mentioned, we'd like to maximise time for questions at the end. I will provide a very brief overview of the fund's significance before handing over to Richard Samuels, who, as Kylie said, is from the Australian Government. So the strategic element of the fund is very much designed to drive innovation by providing flexible funding, and that's important and intentional part of the design, to eligible Australian organisations that will support bilateral and multilateral collaborative projects with select partner countries in targeted areas. They're the priority areas. The initiative is designed to raise the profile of both Australia and the partner countries in the global science and technology landscape and to boost Australian science and technology capability. With that very brief overview, I'll hand over to Richard Samuels, and in doing so, for his support and the Australian Government's support of this fund.
Thank you, Anna Maria. So, as you noted, Richard Samuels, the General Manager of International Science and Resources with the Department of Industry, Science and Resources, and I'm accompanied here today by my colleague, Dr. Rebecca Doolan. I'm very excited to be sitting here, hosted by ATSE today, and also in partnership with the Australian Academy of Science to discuss the strategic element of the Global Science Technology Diplomacy Fund, which is designed to be a strategic, flexible and streamlined approach to promote international science and research collaboration and build partnerships. Minister Husic, the Minister for Science and Technology, announced the strategic element at Science Meets Parliament, announcing the launch of the first round, opening on the 20th of March and closing on the 31st of May. And applicants must be able to demonstrate suitable and proportionate contributions from international partners. I just want to touch on the fund's objectives. So the fund is intended to provide support for Australian researchers to access specific priority countries' best knowledge, technology, research infrastructure and funding programs. And it's a mechanism to provide leadership and diplomacy through science collaboration and uplift and encourage partnerships to improve science capability and outcomes in both Australia and partner countries. And as has been touched on, there's two elements to the Global Science Technology Diplomacy Fund. There's the strategic element that we're discussing today, which includes the first round that's open, but also a long-standing bilateral element, which includes bilateral funds with key research partners being China and India, underpinned by the Australia-China Science and Research Fund and the Australia-India Strategic Research Fund. Just wanted to touch on the importance of international collaboration. So as many of you know, international collaboration is a fundamental component to the work undertaken across industry, higher education and research sectors. And the Global Science Technology Diplomacy Fund sits along a number of other funding mechanisms, including our Australian Research Council, our NHMRC and our CRCs. And what it's intending to do is leveraging the enormous potential particularly in the region, as recently articulated in the Southeast Asia 2040 strategy and a number of bilateral policies that we've agreed with target markets in the region. In addition to the strong research trends that we've seen for many years in India and China, we are seeing growth in countries like Indonesia and Vietnam, in sectors where we want to play and where we have a comparative advantage, in areas like AI, electric vehicles. While in other countries like New Zealand, we see so much appetite and desire to collaborate in key areas as we progress like-minded policies, including STEM, an uplift in the Pacific, and engagement with First Nations communities. We are breaking new ground with the strategic element, and we have borrowed heavily on the bilateral funds that we have seen. And those funds have, at their core, produced enduring benefits. And we see this fund as almost seed funding for long-term new research and build strong institutional linkages and attract the types of skills and capital that we need in this country if we want to grow specific sectors. If I just touch quickly on the priority themes, there's 5 of them: advanced manufacturing, artificial intelligence, hydrogen, quantum computing, and mRNA vaccines and therapies. Our target markets include Brazil, Indonesia, Japan, Malaysia, New Zealand, the Republic of Korea, Singapore, Thailand, and Vietnam. We highly value the role that we play and partner with the Learned Academies and look forward to partnering with the Australian Academy of Technology and Engineering and the Australian Academy of Science to deliver the strategic element of the fund. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Richard. I'll spend a few minutes speaking about eligibility of applications and applicants. So firstly, to be eligible to apply, the lead Australian organisation must be a single entity acting on behalf of partners who have agreed to collaborate on any given project and undertake eligible activities which are outlined in their submission. The lead Australian organisation must meet all of the eligibility criteria, and project collaboration must include at least one primary partner organisation that's domiciled and registered in a priority partner country. Eligible Australian organisations can apply for funding to support bilateral or multilateral project activities that involve at least one priority partner and one priority theme. So collaborations can include non-priority partners, but it's really important to note that all activities that are supported by the grant must be undertaken with a priority partner. The priority themes, which Richard went through earlier, and partners are all considered equally important to Australia, and there is no preference given to any theme or partner from that priority list, from both of those lists, the countries and the themes. The project activities that may be eligible for funding are intentionally broad, and that is to allow for innovation and to support the development of genuine connections between Australian organisations and primary partners. And the types of activities that may be eligible for grant funding include research or commercialisation projects, joint industry research projects, international research or commercialisation conference workshops or symposia, and exchanges and secondments of personnel between Australia and the listed priority partner countries. These are examples of eligible activities, but there may be other examples that could be approved based on compelling arguments in the expression of interest phase. I'll come to that in a moment. Specific details around how funding can be used and what expenses are eligible and ineligible are found in the program guidelines, and we ask that you look at those carefully so that you ensure your application meets all of the eligibility criteria. If I could go to the next slide. to go through the application process briefly. The program has a two-stage application process, beginning with an expression of interest submission. This has been done deliberately to avoid not overly investing time in applications which may not be successful. The expression of interest will ask the applicant to provide a brief overview of the project, outline how the project meets and how the projects will deliver national benefits. It's designed to be concise and simple expression of interest in that submission form. Following assessment of that first stage expression of interest by a panel of leading experts, and these are panels of fellows drawn from both the Academy of Technological Sciences and Engineering and the Academy of Science, a shortlist will be provided by us to the Department of Industry, Science and Resources, who will then select the applicants who will be invited to submit a full application. The full application will require additional details to those provided in that first expression of interest phase, including a more detailed project proposal addressing the criteria outlined in the program guidelines. The full application will also require additional budget information, letters of support, and partner organisations involved in the project, as well as an outline of arrangements for governance, national security, and intellectual property rights. Full applications will be assessed again by a panel of independent experts drawn by fellows of both of our academies, and they will consider how the project aligns with program objectives, the capacity of the lead applicant to manage and deliver the project, and the broad national benefits of the project. Several other factors will be considered in that assessment process, and these are all outlined in the guidelines. Based on the panel of fellows' assessments, a recommendation of projects will be, to be funded will be submitted again to the Department of Industry, Science and Resources, and the Minister for Industry and Science will make the final decision on which projects will be funded under the strategic element of this fund. A few tips to submit a high quality application. It's always best to be concise, as always, but the higher quality the application, obviously the better chance of success. So high quality applications will effectively address the application questions in full and will outline the project activities and outcomes in relation to the intention and objectives of the program as they are outlined in the guidelines. It's important to ensure that the project lead applicant and partners all meet the relevant eligibility criteria and that the proposed project activities fit within the scope of the program funding use requirements. This includes an outline of the role of each project partner in the proposed activities, including how the lead applicant will manage the bilateral or multilateral collaboration with each project partner. This sort of information will assist the assessors to understand how the project will support the development of highly valued collaborative research relationships between Australia and the identified priority partner countries, and in some cases, third countries. A final tip I can leave you with is to feel most welcome to reach out to the team who are managing the program. If you have any questions around the program guidelines, requirements, questions with the application form or other queries about the program, they're ready to assist and clarify details so that applications can be of the highest possible quality and give you the best chance of success. Over to you, Kylie.
Thank you. Thanks, Anna Maria. And thank you so much for those of you who have popped questions in the Q&A box. I'm sorry I wasn't clear earlier. If you can please put your questions in the Q&A box rather than the chat, that will enable us to ensure that we continue to answer them. The team is answering them live, and you'll see it might be worth, we're getting a few questions that are popping up repeatedly. It might be worth looking at those that have already been answered before you ask your question, and you can do that by looking at the question and answer box. So I'm going to very briefly look at the priority partner countries. And then we'll leave the rest of the time for more questions and answers. The fund creates opportunities for Australia to lead and help develop new technologies in collaboration with priority countries in our region, as well as around the world. So Australia can take a leadership role in many of these fields, and we recognise that there are some areas in which there are nations elsewhere that have the lead. We very much intend and hope that this grant creates new linkages and provides grantees with access to international networks that can boost Australia's sovereign capability, our economic growth, and our global science and technology reputation. So the fund aims to support and enhance the position of Australia as a trusted partner for science and technology collaboration for the ongoing benefit of both Australia and our innovators, and to build regional capacity. We know that international collaboration positively supports innovation. So we're also looking to support the creation of impactful personal, organisational and institutional partnerships for mutual benefit. We hope that partnerships will thrive beyond the life of this grant. The priority partner countries are listed on the website. I'll read them to you now. Brazil, Indonesia, Japan, the Republic of Korea, Malaysia, New Zealand, Singapore, Thailand, and Vietnam. These countries have been selected based on their alignment with Australian government priorities and their existing capabilities in the priority themes. I would continue to emphasise that science and technology collaboration, it's an important part of Australia's bilateral relationship with each partner country. So the selection of countries through this fund offers opportunities to work with and to learn best practice from science and technology powerhouses such as Japan and Korea, and to partner with emerging countries in our region to support mutual advancement of capability for both that partner country and for Australia. All applications will be assessed on their individual merit. There is no quota for any funding to be applied for applications in relation to any specific partner priority nation. Applicants should, however, consider the capacity of their partners to deliver on the application's proposal and the value that that relationship will bring to Australia. I'll speak briefly about partner organisation eligibility. Each Australian lead applicant must be joined by at least one partner organisation that is domiciled and registered in a priority partner country, as listed on the fund website and in the guidelines. Organisations that are subject to the sanctions regimes listed in the program guidelines are not eligible as applicants or as partner organisations. So Australian applicants must ensure that international partners do not include states, organisations or persons that are identified on these lists. The program objective is to support the development of genuine connections between Australian organisations and those in priority partner countries. So partnerships between subsidiary entities are not eligible. This is also true with respect to collaborations between personnel from an Australian university and personnel based at that university's overseas campus. Multilateral applications are very welcome. Applications can have multiple partner organisations from different countries, so long as there is a partner from a listed priority partner country, and that partner from a listed priority partner country is a significant part of the proposed project. All activities which are supported by grant funds must be undertaken with a partner entity domiciled and registered in a priority partner country. So for multilateral applications, these will be favourably received if they demonstrate that through partnership with a third or fourth entity domiciled in a country that is not the priority partner will enhance Australia's access to advanced science and technology and will significantly support and enhance the collaboration and the project to succeed. So, for example, a trilateral proposal involving an Australian applicant, a Vietnamese university, and a French company would be eligible because the Vietnamese university is based in a priority partner country, so long as the activities proposed to have meaningful and substantial contribution from that Vietnamese university. So I'll leave it there for now on the priority partner countries, and I think would like to get straight back to the Q&A. Please don't use the chat function, please use the Q&A function. And as mentioned, if you include your email address, then it makes it easier for our team to get back to you with detailed responses. So I'm going to invite my fellow panel members to come back to the screen now, and we might stop screen sharing these slides, and we'll go to questions.
Richard, I'll start with a question for you. What does advanced manufacturing include?
Thanks. I thought I would get that question in terms of the 5 priority areas, because advanced manufacturing can be defined quite broadly. But in terms of what we're thinking around advanced manufacturing is the interplay between manufacturing and technology, and how we use some of our critical technologies to improve our manufacturing processes. So it can include things like medical devices. It can think about how we use digital platforms to improve our manufacturing capability. It also includes things like machine learning. So it is, out of the 5 priority areas, I think the one that can be more broadly defined. And so there's some of the themes that are guiding us in terms of that, in terms of that field.
Kylie, a question for you. What kind of organisations can be project partners for Australian applicants?
So international partners can be universities, research institutions, companies, not-for-profits, or government organisations. So we've got a pretty broad eligibility on that front. But it's incumbent on the Australian applicant, and applicants must be Australian, to be mindful of any risks that might be presented by your partnership. And the details of the risk considerations that we encourage you to make are available in the guidelines, as well as the capability and the value that your partners bring to the project. And how that project will both benefit and enhance Australian research and development and our bilateral relationship.
Thanks, Kylie. Anna Maria, a question for you. We've had a lot of people asking about cash contributions and in-kind contributions from partner organisations. Could you provide any further detail as to what level of contribution applicants should be trying to receive?
Yeah, thanks, Remy. I noticed quite a few questions in the chat that went both to the type of contribution as well as the proportion, so I might try and answer those together. Project partners can make contributions and are required to, and while there's not a specific amount of co-contribution, project proposals should demonstrate suitable and proportionate project contributions by partners, and that can either be cash contribution or an in-kind contribution. So that will be assessed. Obviously, other eligibility requirements need to be met in terms of the primary organisation in Australia and the priority country in that partnership, and if it's multilateral, third countries can be.
Thanks, Anna Maria. Heading back to you, Richard, could you provide a brief explanation of how the priority themes and partner countries were selected?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Well, in terms of the priority themes, the strategic element was first announced in 2022 with 5 priority themes, and they all remain the same. And what you may be seeing across government, but particularly from the Department of Industry, Science and Resources, is a really clear-eyed focus on the role that Australia will play in underpinning our advancements in artificial intelligence, quantum and vaccines. And so the department, in collaboration with the chief scientist and a number of collaborators, have developed some strategies on those themes. And so what we're trying to do is identify opportunities for collaboration in those areas. And our research and engagement in the region is suggesting that there's quite a big focus in these target markets across those themes. And we know that we're not going to be able to succeed in attracting the skills and capital and growths of these sectors if we don't collaborate internationally. On the priority partners, it's a bit of a longer answer. So we've got to remember the context of the fund, and we're here today to talk about the first round, which is a $6 million round. But it sits in the context of a broader funding envelope of $40 million over the forwards, and we're looking forward to running future strategic elements into the future. Australia, of course, has long-standing international relationships with key markets like Europe and the US, and we've got some pretty good industry research statistics to back that up. What we're trying to do in the context of some whole-of-government policy around looking at Southeast Asia is identify new linkages and new research collaborations in the region to contribute to our combined growth, but to also think about our sovereign capability needs and think about how we diversify and lean in to the region. I also wanted to pick up on some points that Kylie's made a number of times in terms of, while we're looking for a priority partner to be in the mix of these research collaborations, we're also looking for some strategic bids that think about how we can partner with other countries. And they can include, for instance, Europe and North America. So from little things, big things grow. You have to start somewhere. We've got this strategic element. What we're really interested in doing is looking at some high quality applications, really think about the pipeline of projects that are coming out of these countries, and then sit down across government, but also with the learned academies to think about what future rounds, whether they, what the future rounds look like, in particular, looking at the themes and countries. But I think there's probably enough in these themes and these countries to be able to get a good pipeline of research collaborations, but let's see what the applications are looking like. Thanks.
Thanks, Richard. Anna Maria, a question about that we've got frequently is about who can spend the grant funds. Would you be able to provide an answer for that?
Yes. So the grant is technically provided to the Australian organisation who is leading the partnership with the priority country on a themed area, a priority themed area. And so it is through that Australian organisation that funds are administered effectively. Sorry, Remy, can you repeat? I think, was there a second part to that? I don't know that I answered that completely.
Just who can spend the grant money?
So as the grant holder, that is then distributed to the partners who undertake the work that to undertake the project. There will be collaborations with those other countries that make a financial or in-kind contribution, but the lead organisation would be the Australian organisation holding the grant.
Thank you for that. Kylie, a question about priority themes that we've got from a number of submissions. Will we be considering applications that cover multiple themes?
Yes, so applications may have multiple partner nations and they may cover multiple themes. we're interested to see what comes up creatively across those themes. I've noticed a couple of questions as well about whether the fund, so firstly, is the fund specific for the Asia Pacific region only? I think Richard has covered this in that as long as you've got a priority partner nation as your key partner in the application, you may also include partners from other nations. So they don't have to be confined to the Asia Pacific, they can be from anywhere around the world. There is also I've noticed some questions about co-funding. If you have a look at the guidelines, they'll state pretty clearly that you're not allowed to duplicate support that's available from other sources, including Australian government funding mechanisms. So if you've already got government funding for your project will be ineligible for this fund.
Thanks, Kylie. I'll throw to you, Richard. Could you please just provide a high-level overview of some of the considerations with respect to intellectual property and national security? These, of course, will be front of mind for a lot of applicants, given it is an international and global opportunity.
Yes, I'll keep them quite high level, but essentially we will be thinking about intellectual property and national security implications. I think we do have a bit of information in the guidelines around the types of due diligence and information that we expect around managing those requirements. If there's particular concerns around national security, of course, we work across government with relevant stakeholders in other departments, including the Department of Defence, to think about whether there's any implications that we need to manage as part of the mix for assessment.
Just browsing through the questions, there are a number of questions coming up around relative weighting and preferences given. I do want to re-emphasise that we are not preferencing any particular partner nation or any particular theme, nor are we preferencing any particular kind of partner entity. So if you look at that list of eligible types of partner entities, there's no sort of extra points for going with a business over a university, for example.
Thanks, Kylie. Richard, we've had a couple of questions about the overall level of funding for the program. Some people have quoted the 40 million for the overall Global Science and Technology Diplomacy Fund. Could you just provide a quick breakdown of you did cover it earlier in the presentation, but a quick breakdown of the different streams and the funding allocation to each of them?
Yeah, of course, Remy, happy to. So in terms of the overall envelope for the fund, we do have $40 million. And so that covers both elements, both the strategic element and the bilateral. So what we're looking at in terms of the first round is $6 million. We then expect and are working towards holding a next round of another $6 million allotment. And then we have $5 million for the 25-26 financial year. So that covers the strategic element. We also have, as I said, ongoing funding for the bilateral funds, those being the Australia-China Science Research Fund and the Australia-India Strategic Research Fund.
Thank you, Richard. A question for you, Kylie. Any proposals weighted more favourably, for example, research-orientated projects, commercialisation-orientated projects, or projects that mix both elements?
No, there is no weighting on a type of project. I would encourage every applicant to consider all applications will be assessed on merit and their alignment to the fund's objectives and selection criteria. So I would consider every applicant to consider how their project responds to the overarching purpose of the fund, as well as those specific eligibility criteria. So remember that we are looking to build that connection, to build that capability, to improve Australian opportunity for research and development across those priority themes.
Thank you, Kylie. I'll throw to Richard again. We've had a question about how an international organisation that's interested in the fund but doesn't have an Australian partner yet can get involved. And this specific question was in the RNA area. So do you have any tips on how an international organisation that's looking to partner with an Australian organisation could make approaches and build those partnerships?
Yes, well, as we've noted, we need both. We need an international partner and an Australian partner. We really have tried in terms of having the application period run for the 10 weeks to allow that time to forge those collaborations. We appreciate, and I understand, having some history working on projects under the India Fund, that can take time. So, you know, that there is this current round and there will be future rounds. I suppose it comes down to identifying whether there's a research partner in a country that is interested in the same research field, whether it be, you know, AI or hydrogen. Think about whether there's something that you can collaborate on and put in a good bid. I suppose also when you think about the range of eligible activities, there's quite a bit of flexibility. So, you know, if you're thinking you want to start small and undertake a symposium or a research collaboration, you know, use this round to bid for that. And then what that might do is open up some opportunities, you know, into the future. So I don't, maybe even Anna Maria and Kylie, you've probably got experience in sort of working with how we've sort of forged those relationships. There are other programs, of course, that you can use. So, for instance, another program that sits within my branch is the Asia Link Business, which is all about ensuring that we're driving some strategic connections and relationships in target markets where you might not have a deep understanding or knowledge of the research institutions or the researchers in those markets. So it, you know, it requires a bit of due diligence, but also there are other programs and angles of assistance to sort of identify those mutual connections.
The only thing I'd add, Richard, is you're absolutely right. There are other areas of the Department of Industry that might have capability or information in this area, but often another source of information are places like CSIRO, national engagement activities, which tend to reflect national priorities and are able to bridge and network individuals looking for partner organisations, whether they be in research, if they're universities, medical research institutes, or industries, or even startups. So I think, you know, some due diligence and research would reveal some of those opportunities across government.
Thank you, Anna Maria. Question for Kylie. What are the benefits to international partner organisations given they won't be receiving funding from the Australian government through this fund?
Well, we hope that international partner organisations understand that they will benefit from access to Australian research, Australian networking opportunities, capacity building, enhanced visibility and long-term partnerships. And in instances where the project is multilateral, they'll benefit from those opportunities in another partner nation as well. And they'll be hopefully opening opportunities to collaborate with Australian entities ongoing. I did just want to address another issue that's come up quite a number of times in the questions, and I'm just delighted to see so much interest. There are so many questions, so you're really thinking about your applications, which is terrific. There are quite a few questions that are very specific, asking for some very specific feedback on a particular area of technology and science and its potential eligibility under this fund. I would encourage you, if this is a question that you are asking, to please send an email to the team. The email address will pop up in the chat in a moment. It's info@glodip.org.au, and that way we can respond to your specific questions as best we can. So please send an email. We'll pop that email address in the chat as well. If you have already given us your email through the Q&A or the chat, the team will respond to you there.
Thank you for that, Kylie. That's very helpful. Richard, we heard earlier from Kylie that there was no set amount of funding allocated to any priority country. Is there any specific funding available to the priority themes?
No. So what we've really tried to do in the makeup of the fund and the development of the guidelines is provide quite a bit of flexibility. So we haven't attached the priority themes to particular countries, and we haven't quarantined particular envelopes for themes and countries. So we have a $6 million fund. It really comes down to merit and how the applications are put together. So there's no real methodology or weighting. There's quite a bit of flexibility.
Thanks, Richard. And given we have a lot of technical questions and we're trying to cover the high level questions, we might make this the last one. But Richard, could you just provide an answer to a question about, or for the benefit of applicants, if there are any changes that they need to make to their application between the EOY phase and then onto the full application phase, how they should address any changes in their applications?
Kylie, I don't really like to handball this, but is this one more
That's
for
okay.
you?
I'm happy to jump in on this one. Look, we understand that occasionally changes may be required. We would discourage significant changes, as you know, something that changes the purpose or the scope of the project in a meaningful way. We would perhaps encourage you to get in touch to have a discussion before you submit your full application. In any case, if there are changes between the EOI and the full application, please ensure that you address these in your application, explain the reasons for the changes and how the project has improved and how it will seek to more appropriately address the requirements and the needs of the fund through making these changes.
Well, thank you, Richard, Kylie, and Anna Maria for taking those questions. In the interest of time, we will wrap up the Q&A session, and I'll throw it over to Kylie to wrap up the webinar.
Okay, thanks again, everyone. Just to remind you that this webinar has been recorded. It will be available through the GlowDip website, and there will also be the slide deck available as well. I do encourage you to look at the website and download the guidelines, read them carefully. Many of the questions that you may have will be answered in that guideline document. Just to recap the key points, as you can see on the screen there, the grants are for this round between $100,000 and $1 million. Expressions of interest are closing on the 31st of May. You do need to have identified and name your partner in that expression of interest. We'll be going back to selected expressions of interest to invite full applications in July. And we hope and plan to announce the funding in October. We acknowledge, however, that as there is ministerial involvement for this fund, that sometimes the timing can be a little bit more flexible in terms of the announcements. But we will keep in touch with anyone who has applied and keep you up to date with what those dates are looking like if they do happen to change. I've mentioned the website a couple of times. It's up there on the screen, glowdip.org.au, and as mentioned through our discussion, please, if you are looking for technically specific questions to be answered, please email the team info@glowdip.org.au for further information. We hope to see some really strong and impressive applications that support Australia's global science and technology diplomacy activities to grow and to thrive, to grow capacity here in Australia and to our priority partner nations as well in those key theme areas. My thanks very much to the team who have made this a very smooth process today and worked hard to ensure that the website is ready for you to receive your expressions of interest. And we look forward to being in touch with those of you who are able to submit those expressions of interest before the end of May. And finally, thank you very much, Richard Samuels and Anna Maria Arabia, for joining me on this panel. And we hope to see your applications coming through in the coming couple of months. Thank you.